got more like 2 to 3 inches, does it?
Mine overall, it says 2 to 4 tonight and then 1 to 3 tomorrow.
You're living on an island of lies, Brett. Dear Lord, man. Well, it is a big metro. It sounds like the South Metro has got a chance at some heavier snow. Most of us, I think, are going to be 2 to 3 inches. That's at least what I'm seeing. I'm hoping it kind of curves a little bit to the south. Takes a bit of a right hook, and clobbers into Wisconsin. Good luck, guys. But yeah, don't be surprised tonight. Some snow, a little bit of a little bit of a tough drive tomorrow. I'm going to guess so. Anticipate that, and if it does, we could get more snow if it does track a little further to the north. But right now, it does look like every forecast right now has it kind of pegging closer to the southeastern part of the state. So, and we'll check in with Jeff Stein a little bit later on in regards to the Iowa situation, because they're getting it first. We'll have to see how he's doing down there in Waterloo. I don't know if it started snowing down there yet, but we'll check in with him a little bit later on with some national news. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205 is the phone number. Yeah, hey, we all knew this was coming, but it still is incredibly irritating. Derek Chauvin's attorney has Derek Chauvin's attorney on Wednesday morning made his argument before the Minnesota Court of Appeals to throw out his convictions in the murder of George Floyd, the latest of what could be a final courtroom proceedings in this case that spans nearly 3 years. When the ex-Minneapolis police officer knelt on George Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes, the world responded to bystander footage of the killing with outrage, riots, and protests by the thousands. Chauvin's appellate attorney, William Moorman, M-O-H-R-M-A-N, Moorman, said all that pretrial publicity, the unrest, the calls for police reform made it impossible to get a fair trial. The main remedy my client is looking for is a new trial, Moorman contended before the 3-judge panel. The Hennepin County jury convicted Chauvin of second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, second-degree manslaughter in April of 2021. He was sentenced to 22 and a half years in June. He later pled guilty to federal court to charges of violating Floyd's civil rights, received a concurrent 21-year sentence. Moorman asked for the state convictions to be reversed. If not, he wants a new trial outside of Hennepin County. All right. Stop. Maybe the problem is your client committed an atrocity so bad it's going to be hard to find a jury. I don't like this idea of you've got to go find the whitest county in the state where all Republicans are there and have an all-white jury, and unless you do that, it's not a fair trial. I don't like that mentality. He committed the crime here in Minneapolis, in the streets of Minneapolis. The problem here is Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd in the streets. He murdered George Floyd in the streets. The city of Minneapolis, the county of Hennepin, has the right to prosecute him and should not have to go shopping for, we're going to prosecute him, and we'll go to South Dakota. They're even more white over there. He doesn't deserve that. He didn't murder someone in Otter Tail County or in Morrison County or in Lincoln County. He murdered someone in Hennepin County. And the reason why there was a lot of publicity is he murdered the man in the street. By the way, convicted of all that, so I can say this. This idea that somehow he is wronged because he was tried here is infuriating, because basically the argument is that the people of Minneapolis, where he committed his crime, are too emotional, too irrational. They can't have a say. In Idaho, on a compound. I don't like that argument. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily the argument he's making. He's just basically saying he wants to trial out to Hennepin County. Hennepin County has a right to prosecute him. And, maybe he shouldn't have murdered George Floyd. How about that? Shall we say that? Even if Chauvin wins his appeal, he will still have to serve his federal sentence. He's in custody in a medium security federal prison in Tucson. The decision on his appeal will be issued within 90 days. Mormon has represented controversial landlords accused of substandard conditions. Won a major victory several years ago when the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals struck down a 101-year-old law that made it a crime to make a false political statement about a ballot question. Okay. In Chauvin's appeal, he argued that the state failed to prove sufficient probable cause, among other alleged legal errors outlined in his brief, and the jury was tainted since the killing and trial all happened in Minneapolis. Isn't it got that just the you know, if it's a black man accused of a crime in a white county, how dare the city of Minneapolis think that they should host this trial? No. Justice needs to be served in that community. But if it's a white cop murdering someone on camera in Minneapolis, God forbid we actually have the right to actually prosecute him here. It's not fair. The pretrial publicity was pervasive, and Mormon pointed to the physical pressure on the courthouse and concerns jurors had for their safety. Let me ask you something. You think that's going to be any easier out in Podunk, out in rural Minnesota, where it's the county courthouse is just on the square of some town? That you think that somehow, some way, that there's not going to be any, your people aren't going to drive down there and be angry going on the courthouse? Like it's a freaking set from 12 Angry Men? My God, man. There's maybe 4 counties in the state. St. Louis County up in Duluth, maybe Olmsted County down in Rochester, and of course, Minneapolis and St. Paul, where they lie. Those are probably the only counties in the entire state you could even have this trial because of the amount of people that are going to be interested, because Derek Chauvin murdered a man in the streets of Minneapolis. He did. The Mormon said that what made the case unique was the unrest that followed Floyd's killing, leading up to, because people were a little bit bothered by the cops murdering someone in the streets. And reminder, hey, was the problem the people of Minneapolis, or was the problem the police coming out and immediately said, well, he was, he kind of got what he deserved? And, or was it Bob Kroll sending out that note that said, you people of Minneapolis, you need to hire these cops back. They're good cops. That sort of, remember that? I'm paraphrasing, but you remember that note? Kind of implied that he and Paul Gazelka were going to overthrow the governor and install themselves as the people in charge of the state. I guess he was going to be Grand Wizard of Minneapolis while Gazelka took over as the governor pro tem or something of that nature. Still haven't had a full investigation into that. Hey, DFL, you got the House and the Senate. Maybe having 1 or 2 hearings on that might be a good idea. See how close we were to actually the Republicans and Bob Kroll trying to overthrow the governor. I'd be interested to find out what exactly was behind that, because once again, that's a note that he said in his own note. You remember that? I remember that. Media coverage was more extensive than any other trial in Minnesota's history, he added, and this the court's discretion was abused when Chauvin was denied a change in venue. Well, no, he murdered the person in Hennepin County. Doesn't Hennepin County have a right to have the trial here? The jurors that sat down in this jury, and by the way, I want to remind people, it wasn't a done deal that this was going to go the way it did. I remember that day. I remember Jack. We had Jack Rice on the air with us. As a matter of fact, I'll try to get Jack on with us tomorrow, see if he's available. We had Jack Rice on the air with us talking about what is he thinking. He's like, I don't know. They're going to go all the way. And it did. And I remember being in that at the radio station and having tears come down my face of joy because they actually got the conviction right. But there was some real doubts whether or not Derek Chauvin was going to be found guilty. So don't act. Now you act as like this was a slam dunk. It had no chance. No, there was legit questions whether or not he was going to be found guilty. Jurors that sat on the jury had a stake in the outcome of the case because they lived here and the riots occurred. He said, if this case, 1 second here, pardon me, a quick second. If this case gets moved out of state, the likelihood of having riots in community where the jurors are living, I believe, will be zero. So he wants to move it out of the state. He doesn't want it. He doesn't even want to have it anywhere else in the state. He wants apparently a bunch of guys from Nebraska to rule on whether Derek Chauvin got the, did you get him? I mean, maybe you can go get the Kyle Rittenhouse judge saying, first of all, we're just going to admit that George Floyd was a criminal, and that's just going to be the case. And you can't ever say anything bad about Derek Chauvin, and we're going to have a fair trial now. How about we get that judge? Remember that guy? That Patsy? Dear Lord. You want to move this out of state? Wow. Chauvin's was the first Minnesota trial to be live streamed to viewers worldwide. Minnesota was one of the few states that still bans cameras in the courthouse without rare exceptions. Judge Peter Cahill allowed live streaming of Chauvin's trial because of the pandemic and high public interest. Wednesday's appeal hearing was also live streaming. Each party had 15 minutes to make their oral arguments. A snapshot of their lengthy briefs, and a significant amount of that time was focused on the venue issue and one juror who a Mormon accuses of lying. Landon Mitchell, a black man who was then 31, who was one of the 12 jurors who convicted Chauvin, was the first juror to go public with his role after the verdict. A photo of him in 2020 Washington, D.C. event commemorating Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech drew criticism and potential basis for appeal. Mormon contended that Mitchell lied about whether he participated in the protest in Minneapolis because Mitchell's answered no. Court of Appeals Judge Paul Reyes Jr. told Mormon that he doesn't believe Mitchell was lying because the march Mitchell attended was outside Minneapolis. Reyes said even Chauvin and his attorney seemed to acknowledge the difference when Mitchell was sat as a juror. Reyes said he had a hard time understanding Mormon's argument regarding the juror who he said seemed forthright about Black Lives Matter and that black and racially and ethnically diverse people were not necessarily treated fairly by the police. Neil Katyal, who was acting as U.S. Solicitor General during the Obama administration and served one of the special prosecutors in Chauvin's murder trial, said in his oral argument, Chauvin's attorney asked Mitchell 7 times if he could render a fair verdict, and they chose to seat him on the jury. Mitchell wasn't trying to hide the ball or anything like that. He was very clear.
Hey, Minnesota, it's Brad Friedman.
Thank you. He was very clear about his views on police brutality and racism. Katyal said the Chauvin attorney could not bait and switch now when it comes to the juror. On the issue of the venue, he said Cahill made it clear that even if the trial was in a smaller venue, the security would stand out and there would be the same fears of civil unrest. Further, even if there was some minor faults in the trial, Katyal argued that any error is harmless. He said Chauvin's appeal arguments do not come close to revisiting his convictions. Jurors heard from 44 witnesses, including bystanders and expert testimony, as well as extensive video footage. He said he learned about Chauvin's training and how to avoid prone restraints because of positional asphyxia, which is the very thing that killed Floyd. They said Floyd called out, "I can't breathe," more than 25 times under Chauvin's knee, and at no point did Derek Chauvin provide Floyd medical care. You see, that's the thing is, it's not the crime. It's that the people there were angry about it. That unless you basically put it in the most Republican far-right pro-police district ever, with a jury of only white people from hundreds of miles away from where the crime committed, then and only then can you have a fair trial. Paraphrasing, just kind of paraphrasing there. Just FYI, I'm not saying that's what was said. This is kind of the impression I'm getting from these arguments. No. Derek Chauvin and 3 other officers murdered a man in the streets of Minneapolis. We now know there were plenty of other cases. The Rolling Stone article, the Native Americans thrown into the trunk of the car, the Stallings tapes, even down to Pointergate. There's a rot within the Minneapolis Police Department. And if your problem is Minneapolis, the vote, I mean, I would make an argument. Your better appeal is that you were only doing what police policy was in Minneapolis, and you throw Bob Kroll and the rest of them under the bus. that you didn't do anything wrong because this is the preferred method of dealing with particularly black people in Minneapolis in regards to the Minneapolis police. That might be your appeal, but the argument that the people of Hennepin County, the people of Minneapolis should have no say whatsoever in whether or not Derek Chauvin is guilty is an insult, an absolute insult. And this garbage idea that he somehow deserves to only be tried in white safe zones is ludicrous. Here's your hint. Don't murder people. God, I'm getting just as mad as I was back then. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Matt's tip for the day. Don't murder anyone. Then you don't have to worry about venues. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
This is Ross Stadheim, partner at MJSB Employment Justice. When you've been wronged at work or something just doesn't feel right, it's hard to know what to do next. Our firm can help. We pride ourselves on communication and listening to our brave clients to obtain their own brand of justice. When you hire MJSB Employment Justice, you're not just a number. You're a valued client who will be represented by one of our experienced and accomplished partners every step of the way. That's our promise.
Be heard. You deserve better. Contact us today at mjsbjustice.com.
Hi, this is Laura. Listen to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Our individual health is connected to the health of each other and connected to the health of the earth. We know the problems with the dominant food system: climate change, deadening soils, nitrates in the water, factory farming, injustice, concentration of wealth. How do we both as individuals and as a community step up and support a living food system which honors the earth? Tune to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and remember to support your independent farmers.
Winter is here, and there's a good chance your home isn't being heated efficiently. And it's likely because of air sealing and insulation problems. Inadequate attic insulation is the leading contributor to high energy bills, cold rooms, and ice dams. Great news, the energy-efficient pros at Snap Construction can fix it all. Stop the heat from leaking out and save. Call 612-333-SNAP or visit snapconstruction.com for your free infrared energy inspection. Install with Snap Construction and qualify for over $750 in rebates and incentives. State and city programs are now offering 0% financing for qualifying insulation upgrades. So call Snap Construction for your free insulation energy consultation and start saving on your energy bills. Call 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP. Or visit snapconstruction.com. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed insulation and exterior contractor in the metro area. Visit snapconstruction.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Yeah, just the entire concept of the argument. It just once again, the argument that not only should you not prosecute them for murdering George Floyd, not only should police have special leeway when it comes to this, even though they were on his neck for 9.5 minutes, even though it's clear that he didn't deserve that. Even when you get all that stuff and you pass that, then it comes down to, but should your people there are too emotional. You need to move it out of town. Come on, man. I'm sorry. It's such an insult. It is such an insult to the people of Minneapolis, to the people of Hennepin County, that apparently we're not good enough to be able to judge Derek Chauvin. We're not good enough. That we're too emotional, that we're going to be biased. Like I said, we had Jack Rice on the air the day before the election, or the rulings by the court, the day before. And he said, well, I'm not sure how this is going to go. I remember, because that started the show that day. I don't know if you remember, they announced the rulings. It started the show. And I just remember being just so relieved because there wasn't a guarantee that there was going to be a conviction. The argument that they're making seems to be that this was a slam dunk. There was no chance at a fair trial. And dude, no, there was a very legit chance. It's just that, and I know this might be hard for the Derek Chauvin, Team Chauvin here, but if you got 9.5 minutes of the guy sitting on his neck and the expert witnesses they had come in saying, oh no, he was murdered by Derek Chauvin. George Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin. That the jury is going to say, well, it seems like he was murdered by Derek Chauvin. And like I said, and we said this back with Jack, his appeal is not to say, you stupid people in Minneapolis, you're too emotional. It shouldn't be that. It should be, hey, this was pretty much standard operating procedure for the Minneapolis Police Department under Bob Kroll and other leaders within that department, and that this was expected. This is how you treated the black people of Minneapolis. And sure, it wasn't in any kind of formal training, but there were plenty of times where we talked about this is exactly what you do when it comes to black people. And maybe even take that Rolling Stone article where it talked about to really graduate and become one of them in the Minneapolis Police Department, you had to randomly pick up an African-American and just pound on the guy. That was disturbing. But you can if you're Derek Chauvin, you could actually use that and say, yeah, that's exactly what happened. We all had to go on out there and attack a minority just to prove ourselves to be one of them. There's the defense. There is the appeal. And the question then comes, would you be able to argue that you were supposed to do this on your own? I always thought that was actually Chauvin's best defense, was he was just doing the Minneapolis police way, which, by the way, 4 days later, we have video evidence of them roaming the streets in an unmarked police car, opening a door and just opening fire on Jaleel Stallings, who got hit in the chest unannounced by what he thought was white supremacists, and him, as an Army veteran and as a person with the right to carry, pulled out his gun, shot at the ground to try to scare them off, to which then they said, oh, we're the police, and proceeded to beat the living daylights out of the man in the streets. All while other videos from that night showed the police putting rounds into crowds, basically targeting, hunting the citizens of Minneapolis. 4 days after this, people out there making the argument that how dare the governor and the mayor say this is white supremacists. We're going to defend their reputation. Funny story. It's a hell of a lot of white supremacists that were in town, and they were causing most of the problems. No. The people of Minneapolis, the people of Hennepin County, they're the ones that deserve to have the right to determine whether or not Derek Chauvin was guilty. And this idea that there is just no possible way that he was ever going to get a fair trial is more disrespect and just dragging the city through the mud. I hope that my gut feeling is going to, because we talked to Jack after the case. I don't know if you remember those shows, but we talked to Jack after the case, and he sort of said on appeal, the thing what you have to do is you have to find a real procedural problem. And he said, I don't see it. That was Jack. He said, I don't see the procedural issue that's going to overturn the verdict in regards to, for Derek Chauvin. And I don't see anything here that tells me the case. That being said, I don't know. Do you want to be the judges that basically say that even though there was no major procedural problems with the trial, that basically you're just going to call a new one and send it to the whitest part of the country just so that Derek Chauvin's got the best chance at being found not guilty? Please. Disturbing. just disturbing. And like I said, it's just bringing back all the feelings I had back when all this was going on. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. We'll find out what the appeal court says. We'll take a break. Come on back. Jeff Stein joins us when we do return. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Seward Co-op is now offering convenient self-serve and prepackaged hot options and salad bars at both the Franklin and Friendship stores. Breakfast items available daily until 11 a.m. and brunch served all day every Sunday. Their weekly lunch and dinner menus highlight cuisines from around the world. They offer vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free options daily. 95% of the ingredients used are organic from small-scale, local community food producers whenever possible. More at seward.coop.
On the show, This Queer Book Saved My Life, we talk with LGBTQ plus guests about the queer books that saved their lives. On our next episode, we chat with Michael Barakiva about the young adult novel Dreadnought by April Daniels. April joins Michael for a deep dive into YA queer lit, as well as the politics of comic books and writing queer superheroes. You can listen to This Queer Book Saved My Life every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about the joy of live fire cooking. Cooking over a live fire is the oldest and most basic form of cooking.
What's new is in the way fire is handled and its heat is managed.
It's easier to experience and enjoy the smell and taste of food cooked over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs live fire grills, fire pits, and ovens. Let us help you experience the smell, the taste, the fun of cooking with fire.
Pizza was first made and is still best made in an open fire oven. The radiant and conductive heat of a live fire is unmatched for wood roasting and baking artisan breads too.
Come see the many ways you can cook over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 30. Tonight, about 2 to 4 inches of snow with a low of 26. And Thursday, another 1 to 2 inches of snow with a high around 30. The Great Wall Restaurant has provided a delicious taste of authentic Chinese cuisine since 1981. Specializing in Szechuan and Peking dishes, the Great Wall Restaurant offers one of the most extensive Chinese menus in the Twin Cities. Located just north of 50th and France on the Edina-Minneapolis border, order now at greatwalledina.com.
Jeff. J-E-F-F Jeff. J-E-F-F Jeff. J-E-F-F Jeff.
Jeff Stein is our national and presidential expert, noted author. You find his books over at Next Chapter Books, as well as also totallyiowa.com, the Iowa Business Report, the Iowa Politics Report. Come to us via KXEL, Cedar Falls, Waterloo. Are you on weather watch right now, Jeff?
Stormageddon, Matthew. It's Stormageddon. We are going to be lucky if we survive. Well, it hasn't even started. So I don't know.
Not yet. I mean, how many inches you going to get?
It was supposed to have been doing something now to affect afternoon drive time. And it was, you could get 8 inches of snow at the Stein Ponderosa. And now it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. So we'll just see. Yeah, I mean, this is why I love living in the Midwest. Lived here all my life. And I like to point out to people that we get to experience all 4 seasons.
Yes.
Usually not in the same week. I mean, literally 48 hours ago, we had tornadoes in eastern Iowa.
I saw that. That was like the first time in 60 years Iowa had tornadoes in January.
In January, yeah. And, you see this thing dancing across an interstate, blowing over semis, and you check your watch and look at the date and go, oh, okay. And now we're looking at upwards of 8 to 10 inches of snow in northern Iowa. So thank you, Mother Nature, for your ever benevolent jurisdiction on this topic.
Last year, we had, for the first time ever in Minnesota, tornadoes in December. Yeah. We never have had a tornado in December. Last year, we ended up having like 6 that one day. And I was it's nuts.
I think Iowa was the same way. There had never been a December tornado until that 2021 storm that came through. And So now we can say, yes, not only have we had tornadoes in every month of the year, but you could get a foot of snow on top of the debris afterwards.
My
delightful.
favorite part about working in Iowa
Yes.
was that there are some, it doesn't matter what's going on outside. It could be weather, Armageddon outside your window.
Yeah.
And you're there. But if you've got a coach's show that starts at 6,
Are you
the
kidding me?
Armageddon is over at 6:00. Oh my God, run for the hills. Tornadoes are tearing up the town. And now it's time for Coach Bill Fenley's women's basketball program over at Iowa State University. Take it away, Bill.
And you know why, don't you? Because it had a sponsor. Because I have the same thing here where it's like, we're looking at severe weather, we'll keep you posted. And someone came in one day and said, what happens if it's during the Panther game? Like, I don't know. Maybe we should just ignore the fact that there's a tornado bearing down in a metro area. Or, I don't know, maybe we should tell the public about it.
Yes, the thing which is funny is how many times I'd have to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt the Iowa State football game, but we do have severe weather here, and I get, how dare you? I want to hear more about BJ Shaban, and you're like, oh God, really, man? Okay,
now,
sure.
for you folks listening, you don't appreciate how next level Matthew is going here today. I mean, he is deep. I mean, if you know it, you know it, and he's clearly on his game, boys and girls.
I tell you what, I enjoyed my time in Iowa. Worked down there twice, and both. I mean, and like I said, you're never going to find a better pork chop or a corn on the cob anywhere in the country. But as well, there are some quirks of Iowa radio which are just hilarious. Well, so much for that tornado. It's now time for the Iowa State football program, and
we have the same issue with television stations that cover a third of the state. Well, I'm sure that those who wanted soap operas or game shows Monday afternoon did not like that there was interruption, wall-to-wall coverage because of a tornado heading toward the second largest city in the state. Well, if you were north of that, it's like, well, I want to see daytime Jeopardy. Well, okay, I can't do anything for you.
And who doesn't like daytime Jeopardy? All right. So let's talk about the committee just really quickly about this. I don't think we have to spend too much time on this. I mean, granted, there's going to be the argument, well, Democrats took people off committees, so they're just doing the same thing. Well, but they took Marjorie Taylor Greene off committees because she basically posted about murdering the Speaker of the House. They took Gozer off committees because he posted a video of him murdering AOC. And, the response here is, we just don't like them. I mean, McCarthy has made this argument. The FBI told him he shouldn't be there. The FBI came on out and said, we never told you that. It just is. I mean, clearly this was part of the negotiation for him to get the speakership, but it does kind of, once again, it moves it from the case where there might have been cause in the past to just say from here on out, it's about pettiness. And if you just don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't think she should be too happy with being on any committee, because when the Democrats take back the House in 2 years, which I'm almost guaranteeing they're going to, I guarantee that she's not going to be on any committees that she wants to be on.
Well, they make the claim that Omar has anti-Semitic viewpoints and therefore should not be on certain committees. Schiff, it's simply retribution for enjoying the Trump impeachment hearings too much. Swalwell, the China stuff with Swalwell, I don't think has ever really been fully vetted. But the point that's clear is, if you take out 2 of ours, we're going to take out 3 of yours. And in no way does this end well for the public that simply wants to have things taken care of. Because like you just said, okay, Democrats are going to take over and then they're going to throw 4 off. And where does this really get us? But I don't think anybody in leadership, quote unquote leadership these days, is thinking of the broad ramifications or thinking of a phrase we used to use called statesmanship. That's not there.
Well, and Raskin too, wasn't he? I think he was pulled off his committee too. So it's 4 they took off.
It could have been.
Yeah, I think it's Jamie Raskin as well. And I mean, there's no reason to take him off any committee. I mean, there really isn't any. This is just pettiness. But they also did it to their own side. Who was the Republican from Michigan that was supposed to be the head of his committee? And they basically, one of McCarthy's inside boys basically took over that committee. And apparently there was a blow up between him and McCarthy in regards to the fact that he stripped him, he screwed him over, and he stripped him of his committee chair.
Well, normally Congress is a seniority-based system.
Yes.
And one of the things that all of the promises that the current speaker made is bringing to light is he skipped certain people who were in line in favor of these other deals. So it would be like Matt's in line for this committee chair position. Matt has been loyal to whomever the speaker is all this time. Then Jeff comes in, throws his normal temper tantrum, and gets his way. And Matt, being a loyal soldier for the speaker all this time, gets elbowed out in favor of Jeff being a hothead just to placate him. That doesn't seem right and it doesn't seem fair. And you can understand why that's going to undermine McCarthy's power or control over the caucus. Again, numbers are numbers. George Santos is still a member of Congress. Therefore, the Republicans have 222. McCarthy can afford to lose 4 votes on any issue. He's been spending so much time trying to keep the 20 together, if you will, that he's now at risk of losing people who were there for him all along. And again, he cannot afford to lose anybody.
The one of the things that's interesting as you get to this, because he definitely has, I'm not saying burned bridges, but he has singed some bridges when it comes to the moderates.
He's burned. You can say burned because he has. He has clearly shown through his actions that if you were loyal to him and you're a moderate, you're no longer in vogue. It's a complete burning of the bridge. And I don't know how you come back from that.
Well, because he did still get all the votes, which was important. But at the same time, it's going to be interesting. Okay, so this is their first big challenge. And this is, as you and I laid this out, this is the Republicans' plan is, even though they only have the House, they don't have the Senate, they don't have the presidency, what they're going to do is they're going to use the debt ceiling extension to basically blackmail the rest of the government to doing what they want to do. That's what they're attempting. Their White House has already said we're not going to negotiate. It's interesting. I told a friend of mine who's currently out in the parks of the West that I was in earlier last year. And I said, I'm glad you went now because I don't think any of these are going to be open anytime soon. They've already sort of, well, we're going to have the military. We're okay with the military running. We're going to pay back the Chinese on their interest. We don't want to miss that. But basically, they're already putting out instructions to stop everything else across the board. And this is not going to end well for either the country or for them, because the reality is I don't think anyone, as much as Republicans are trying to scream, well, we just want to put budget proposals, they don't want to negotiate. The reality is you raising the debt limit, which once again, the debt was really bad because of Trump's tax cut. That's where a lot of this new deficit came from. The reason why it's most people, trying to argue people that we have to cut Social Security or Medicaid or Medicare because of this, that's not a winning thing. And they can try to scream that all day long. They're just not going to get there.
This is going to be a high profile showdown, and it's going to be a matter of who blinks first. And the point of it is that the amount of money they're talking about, like we're going to negotiate with the Democrats and try to reduce spending, it is a drop in the bucket, but symbolically, they can claim a victory. In other words, it isn't going to make any difference in the overall spending hierarchy. And they're not going to touch those entitlements. They're looking at other things that they would deem the woke culture. So let's take out this money from the military because that's leading to it becoming woke, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to try to check off a few little things and say, look, we're standing up against this horrible spending, when in reality, they're really going to be doing nothing. And the question is, will the Democrats give them that sort of win, quote unquote, just to get past this thing? Or are we going to be hamstrung by dealing with this for 6 months? In other words, this is a Congress that said we're going to return to regular order. We're going to do the budgets that were supposed to be done, et cetera, and it's going to be the Senate's problem if they don't follow along. Okay, that's fine. But if all of that is off to the side because of the sideshow of standing up to raising the debt limit, they're going to lose whatever momentum they otherwise would have. And so they've decided that this is going to be the hill to die on. And I don't know that they have enough in their corner that will lead them to actually push this. Because don't forget, we have heard very similar words from Mitch McConnell in the past, and then he folds like the cheap suit he typically wears.
Well, but McConnell also understands, I'm not going to sacrifice the banking sector just because I want to appeal to some of the voters. The problem I see for Republicans right now is on this there doesn't seem to be a game plan. You do have multiple Republicans talking about, I know tons of 80-year-olds who want to continue to work, so we're going to change Social Security and retirement age. And you're like, wow, that's real aggressive. And I don't think that's going to be, I mean, remember when, Paul Ryan tried that. They were talking about that, and it kind of stunk up the joint, and they couldn't get away from it fast enough. You've got that issue. You've got some people who are saying, well, I'm for some cuts to Social Security and to Medicare. You have some people who are saying, we're not going to touch Social Security and Medicare. And you even have some Republicans who are out there saying, I think we just should raise the debt ceiling. I don't think we should be playing games here. There is not a unified voice here. And it does lead me to ask the question of what does happen if all of a sudden you do have, say, 40 Republicans who are saying, you know what, it's time for us to raise the ceiling. We're done with it, and these games are over. How that's going to go through, because my guess is going to be that the leadership in the House is not even going to allow a bill to get to the floor unless they sign off on it.
Here's the danger for Republicans, first of all. They are going to point towards certain categories of spending that they want to have cut as part of this. The Democrats are going to immediately point to Social Security and Medicare. Because again, if you're serious, that's where the money is going. Well, Republicans don't want that. So now you're getting down to fighting over these categories, and without any plan, any specific proposal, we're just talking about these broad categories that people don't want to touch. But there's a much broader point that you made, and I think this signifies the entire McCarthy speakership, whether it lasts 2 months, 2 years, or 20 years. There is no plan. Kevin McCarthy had a plan. I want to be speaker when I grow up. That was it. When you looked at what they put forward to voters, 1994, Gingrich and his crew came up with the contract with America. You may love it, you may hate it, but it was specific. And so McCarthy, thinking that that's the way he gets to be speaker, I'm going to do something just like Newt did. And he came up with this broad set of 4 or 5 platitudes that meant nothing. It's kind of like, hi, I run a group called People in Favor of Nice Weather. Well, that's great. I mean, there was nothing tangible. And that was the first very clear clue that McCarthy wanted the gavel and had no conception of what he would do with it, because he was in it for himself as opposed to what he would do as speaker. In other words, McCarthy's already hit the pinnacle. He's peaked because he got to be the speaker, because he has no plan. Nobody else has a plan, and it's going to be bubbling up from the members. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Organic support for something is fine, but he does not have what it takes to separate these different forces and bring them together, because he's just going to sit there holding the gavel because he worked his entire life to get it.
Well, and you know as well as I do, I mean, when you look at the breakdown of politicians, sure, there's the clown show. That's, Gomerts and Gozers and Marjorie Taylor Greens. But the reality is there's a lot of politicians in there who are well-liked by Wall Street, well-liked by corporate America. They don't like when the financial markets get shaken to the core. They don't like the boat getting rocked too much. And it does bring up a point that I'm going to almost wonder if this does implode on McCarthy, will there be a moderate Republican who will look at the Democrats and say, here's the deal. I got 60 of us over here. We're willing to do this. We'll give you some concessions. Just let's make sure we don't sabotage the economy at that same time. And it's going to be interesting to see the guys that know better, not the morons that basically like, I'm going to do this because of QAnon. But the people that know better, if they basically say enough's enough, we're not going to cavitate the U.S. economy.
So now you do a QAnon supporter impression. I was used to the
Oh.
Trump impression. This is entirely new.
I can't get deep enough to do Marjorie Taylor Greene's voice. So, wow.
Well, certainly not with your brace and your current injuries. No, certainly not. Well, here's the thing that I think McCarthy would first have to face. You're not wrong with that supposition, but remember one of the things that he had to give up. Speaker Pelosi removed the rule about a single member could, in essence, call the question on whether the chair should be thrown out, the speaker should be thrown out. And is he going to have to face that from within this early in the term?
Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to turn attention because to a point, stay on the same point, but move it to a different direction in regards to will Republicans kind of get out of their own way on some of these issues. Jeff Stein joining us, 952-946-6205. It is the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
This is Angela Warner for Warner Stellian. And while I'm always proud of the work we do in our community, I'm especially proud of our partnership with Make-A-Wish. With your help, we are donating $50 for each qualifying appliance purchase to Make-A-Wish. Together, we could donate up to $100,000 for Minnesota kids again this year. So I invite you to do good for your family while helping kids' wishes come true during Warner Stellian's Great Give Back. Now through January 23rd, in-store or online at warnerstellian.com.
With Minnesota snow and ice season here, are your tires able to handle the winter driving? Take your vehicle in for service at Rudy Luther Toyota. Drive in and experience the incredibly cool Hunter Quick Check Drive Inspection Service, which will tell you the status of your tire treads. If you need new tires, the Luther Tire Event is going on right now. Buy 4 tires installed and get $100 in Luther service credit. It also comes with free lifetime rotations and the guaranteed lowest price. Some restrictions apply. Make sure your vehicle is safe while you're taking advantage of great value by heading to Rudy Luther Toyota, 5 miles west of Minneapolis on 394.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067 or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
Better Futures Minnesota's Reuse Warehouse has big news. We have a brand new online store. Check out reusebfm.com. This is a great way to see what we carry in the Reuse Warehouse. Appliances, building materials, kitchen and bath fixtures, lighting, flooring, lumber, heating and cooling items. Don't miss the beautiful benches and COVID safety shields that are hand-built using reclaimed wood from our deconstruction projects. Check out reusebfm.com. That's reusebfm as in betterfuturesminnesota.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Jeff Stein joining us for his usual Wednesday visit. Jeff, when we talk about getting out of your own way, one of the things that's interesting is the discussion in regards to abortion, because Trump today has gone after evangelical leaders, and he's doing what his power is, the people that follow the evangelical leaders. And so what he's trying to do is he's trying to rile up that group and get them to go to their bosses and say, why are you not backing Donald Trump? The evangelical leaders, after watching what happened this last election, are like trying to desperately move away from him. And so there's that goal. And then you have people like Kristi Noem, who's like, we should have more, more abortion restrictions nationwide. She's already making that appeal to those leaders. So you have this real fight that's starting to brew here on where they're going. But, Trump's argument, and this is one thing, until it's proven to not work, he knows he has the followers of these guys in his pocket. And it looks like he's basically trying to get them mobilized to go after the evangelical leaders that are not kissing his ring.
Well, the folks who voted for him got what they wanted. Namely, they got justices on a Supreme Court that would review Roe versus Wade and decide the issue in their favor. He already delivered that. He was not the strong anti-abortion candidate. He was a pragmatic candidate, and he knew that's how he was going to get a lot of voters. So now he's talking about, well, these candidates, they don't understand. You have to have exceptions. Well, that surprised a lot of the people who voted for him to begin with. In other words, I don't think it's necessarily going to work because, yes, they followed him once. They got what they wanted. What else can he give them other than him saying, I gave you 3 Supreme Court justices and you got what you wanted? Well, what have you done for us lately? And what are you going to do for us going forward? And that's the whole problem with the Trump 2024 candidacy. I've talked to no end of people who say, I'm really glad he was in there. He did some great things. I would rather he not run again. And these are people who voted for him twice because of the fact that the time has passed.
Well, and they did support him last time. I mean, let's face it, Herschel Walker was an insanely flawed candidate for an evangelical, and they proudly voted for the guy that had abortion center punch cards. I mean, so, it's not like they abandoned him before. I mean, this really is a rift that's starting to get wider and wider just in the last month or so.
Oh, absolutely. And now Trump is starting to go out on the campaign trail. He's going to go out and be with Lindsey Graham, who I know is your favorite U.S. senator, and the governor of South Carolina, and they're going to have themselves a big old-fashioned rally, and that ought to be terribly interesting. And now he's floating trial balloons. Should I go back on Twitter and Facebook? What do you think about? He's desperately trying to be the center of attention again. And that's the very quality that I think some people have some problem with. By the way, are you able to watch the live stream?
A little bit, yes.
I just wondered because Brett is probably laughing because in the last segment, you would have seen a dog walk through my shot. And here's what's funny about that to me. That's the second time in our weekly visits over the past year or year and a half on video where a dog has walked through. And it's not the same dog, number one. And number two, I don't have a dog. So I just want you to know
the station. I'm going to suggest this.
Well, I just want you to know if you ever see an employment ad for this company, apparently we're dog friendly.
Okay, so very much. Well, occasionally you'll see a deer crash through the window in our studio, but that's
my house. I have that at my house. I got the wild turkeys. I got the deer. I got everything.
One last quick question for
Yes,
you.
sir.
As you bring
Yes,
up the thing with South Carolina, because Trump's clearly trying to sew up base there. Who
Mhm.
wins in Iowa right now? Do you think that DeSantis would knock off Trump in Iowa, or is that still Trump's?
Well, keep in mind, Trump did not win Iowa in 2016. And so I think there's an opening there for someone like DeSantis, whether it is him or not. It's pretty much jump ball here in Iowa at this point.
Jeff Stein, once again, the Iowa Politics Report. I'll post that up a little bit later on. We'll spotlight this interview as well. That will be up on SoundCloud. Jeff, thank you very much. We will check with you next week. Hour number 2, that's coming up next.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
The Senior Linkage Line is a free statewide service of the Minnesota Board on Aging, helping older Minnesotans and caregivers find answers and connect to services and supports. Questions about Medicare, transportation, looking to move to senior housing, overwhelmed with prescription drug plans? Call the Senior Linkage Line at 800-333-2433 or visit trellisconnects.org, where we help people optimize well-being as they age. That's trellisconnects.org.
Hey, Minnesota, it's your favorite sexy liberal. Join me and my fellow cohorts in liberal justice weekdays from 8 to 11 on AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. Big losses on Wall Street today, fueled in part by a report on retail sales. In the middle of a busy holiday shopping season, retail sales fell a worse than expected 1.1%. Here's the AP's Julie Walker.
Auto sales declined as rising interest rates for auto loans crimped demand. That and falling gas prices helped to pull overall retail sales lower. The December figure marked the biggest monthly decline in 2022. The Fed raised its key interest rate in December for the 7th time in 2022 for exactly that reason, as it tries to cool spending and inflation.
Wholesale prices eased in December, a sign inflation is easing. Loretta Mester with the Federal Reserve in Cleveland says there are some good economic signs, but as far as interest rate hikes are concerned,
So I just think we need to keep going, and we'll discuss at the meeting how much to do at any one particular meeting. But my projections and my view of the economy is that we need to do more.
the Fed's next meeting is about 2 weeks away. Not guilty pleas were entered on behalf of Brian Walsh in Massachusetts. His wife, Anna, has been missing since New Year's Day. He's charged with murder. This is prosecutor Lynn Beelan.
Defendant Googled, what's the best state to divorce from a man? Rather than divorce, it is believed that Brian Walsh dismembered Anna Walsh and discarded her body.
Anna Walsh's body has not been found. Ukraine's interior minister was among those killed in a helicopter crash near Kyiv. Speaking to the World Economic Forum, President Volodymyr Zelensky called for more help from the West.
The supply of Ukraine with air defense systems must outpace Russia's next missile attacks. The supplies of Western tanks must outpace another invasion of Russian tanks.
A source tells the AP the U.S. is finalizing a massive military aid package to Ukraine, likely as much as $2.6 billion. This is AP News.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month. And that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need, 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE, 855-51-BIBLE.
Hey, John, I heard you're turning 65 this year. Time to start comparing your Medicare insurance options.
Oh, I am so overwhelmed with all the different Medicare companies and plan designs. I don't even know where to begin.
Really? I worked with compareyourmedicare.com and they made my Medicare decisions seem easy.
Huh, really? Well, what do they do?
Compareyourmedicare.com represents several of the top Medicare insurance companies in Minnesota. A local licensed agent will help you compare Medicare plans to determine which products best meet your needs and budget.
Wow, that sounds a lot easier than going to a bunch of different Medicare seminars on my own.
Way easier. Just go to compareyourmedicare.com and request a free, no-obligation review. You can even schedule a virtual consultation from the comfort of your own home.
Hi, this is Jared with compareyourmedicare.com. We pride ourselves in serving our community's Medicare needs. Whether you're planning to retire early or work past age 65, we can guide you through how and when to apply for Medicare. Go to compareyourmedicare.com to schedule a consultation.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. We have families waiting for a car. You know, over 85% of unemployed are successful in finding and keeping a job if they have dependable transportation. A car plus a job equals a life changed. 612-919-5526. We have families waiting for a car. 919-5526 or autotech.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 30. Tonight, about 2 to 4 inches of snow with a low of 26. And Thursday, another 1 to 2 inches of snow with a high around 30. The Great Wall Restaurant has provided a delicious taste of authentic Chinese cuisine since 1981. Specializing in Szechuan and Peking dishes, the Great Wall Restaurant offers one of the most extensive Chinese menus in the Twin Cities. Located just north of 50th and France on the Edina-Minneapolis border, order now at greatwalledina.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Hour number 2 of the show on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Good to be with you today. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205 is the phone number. Brett, have you ever been to the mighty shores of Lake Chipotle?
Oh, I was just reading about this before the show and didn't have a chance to see the details. So I'm kind of curious about this Lake Chipotle. I have no idea what
Like
this is, but it's
Chipotle
interesting.
this is in Uptown.
Okay.
It's the Chipotle in Uptown. Someone did not do their due diligence in the design problem. And was it last year or the year before? People started, I remember in last year that all of a sudden it's like, this is just a lake. And to a point where if you go to this store, you will have to have like hip waders to get into it. It is an absolute joke. I mean, it really is. Someone screwed up on the design here. Today, though, because of all the snow we've had and then the rain showers, it's like a full-fledged lake out there. There's one woman was out there on her paddle board, going across the thing. It's a pretty decent sized lake that they've got outside this Chipotle, which, leave it to Minneapolis. They'll figure out a way that they can monetize it. It's the one on Hennepin Avenue. You know which one I'm talking about?
What part of Hennepin Avenue are they talking?
It was just down towards Uptown. It's I think, isn't it by Uptown Diner down there on like
Oh, I know.
26th
Yeah,
or
I know it. Yeah,
26, 28, something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
I do not. I mean, there's also, by the way, I don't know if you've seen the viral video. I don't know who started it. Someone posted a video of a guy out there just chiseling away at a drain because the street had become full of water. And so there's all of a sudden it's got thousands and thousands of views of some guy just out there with an ice chunker to clear a path so that the water can drain off in this, because this is a problem this year. I mean, the roads weren't really cleared very well. We had a ton of snow. There are more than a few lakes that I'm driving through on the roads right now, but Lake Chipotle will always live on. It will be actually, I think, a sad day. People will cry on the shores or the former shores of Lake Chipotle when they finally fix that and actually have it drain properly. Because I can't believe that that's going to be something that the city is going to be tolerating for too much longer. Well, then again, I guess, I don't know. The city I've seen how the city plowed this last time around. And yeah, I was dropping off Charlie over at the U, and it was driving on a series of speed bumps because there's just so much snow all over the place. Not good. Not good. Ugh. Where in your neighborhood, Brett, do you have the big pools of water? Because if I know without sharing where you live, if I know where you live, you kind of live in a low area there by kind of by 9 Mile Creek, right?
Yeah, I don't quite get much of that type of flooding. At least my part's on kind of a higher part of ground. The only big thing we're running into is that the snowplow people have piled up some pretty massive piles of snow in front of certain driveways. Not in front of them, to the side of driveways that are going to be a bit of a nuisance come springtime.
Oh, they were out in Hopkins because the plows had created, I mean, they had completely shut down the sidewalks, and they're actually, to give the city of Hopkins credit, they were out there with someone had a Bobcat and was out there kind of trying to get all that stuff cleared out today. It is a mess. I'm not denying it. I mean, that was a lot of snow that came down in the sky. It just is amazing to me. I always remember this stuff getting cleared a lot faster and a lot more efficiently than it is now. And I don't know if it's, we don't want to tow people or we don't want to declare the emergency. I actually blame Tim Pawlenty because I was back when I was working for Metro Traffic. This is back in the early zeros. There was one storm specifically, and Dean Spratt, who used to do traffic there as well. I remember Dean, he was a character. He was a character. And Dean came out and was like, "What's going on? Why is everything so bad? Why are the roads so messy? This is only like 3 inches of snow." And it was right after Pawlenty had changed how the plowing worked. And it was a mess. And it's just never gotten fixed since. And so, yeah, get ready. More Lake Chipotles, more, big piles of snow. Just be careful out there. And do reminder, we are going to get some more snow tonight. In the metro area, it depends on where you're at. 2 to 3 inches, maybe 4 inches. The heavier stuff down to the southeast part of the metro, or southeast part of the state. Watch out for that because that could actually get pretty rough down there. 952-946-6205 952-946-6205. There are some times where a headline stops me in my tracks. And courtesy of CBS News, this one is just unbelievable. Here's the headline. Eating one fish from a U.S. lakes or rivers likened to drinking months worth of contaminated water.
Ooh, who wants to go fishing?
Oh, yeah. It's bad enough. I see people fishing on like the chain of lakes. I'm hoping they're not eating those fish because and it's nothing against the chain of lakes. You've got Lake Street, you've got the Uptown area. There's so much runoff into that water. It's just, you've got to be having an unleaded rating on those fish. The amount of rubber runoff that's going into that lake alone, I'm surprised the fish don't bounce. Ugh. I would, but it's not that. It's the forever chemicals. Hear this out. Eating one freshwater fish caught in a river or lake in the United States is equivalent of drinking a month's worth of water contaminated with toxic forever chemicals, said researchers on Tuesday. The invisible chemicals called PFASs were first developed in the 1940s to resist water and heat and are now used on items such as nonstick pans, textiles, fire suppression foams, and food packaging. But the indestructibility of PFAS per and polyfluoroalkyl substances means the pollutants have built up over time in the air, soil, lakes, rivers, food, drinking water, and even our bodies. There have been growing calls for stricter regulations of PFAS, which have been linked to a range of serious health issues, including liver damage, high cholesterol, reduced immune responses, and several types of cancer. To find out PFAS contamination in locally caught fish, a team of researchers analyzed more than 500 samples from rivers and lakes across the United States between 2013 and 2015. The median level of PFASs in the fish was 9,500 nanograms per kilogram, according to a study published in the Journal of Environmental Research. Nearly 3/4 of the detected forever chemicals were PFOS, one of the most common and hazardous of the 1,000 forms of PFAS. Eating just one freshwater fish equaled drinking water with PFOS at 48 parts per trillion for a month, the researchers calculated. Last year, the Environmental Protection Agency lowered the level of PFOS drinking considered safe to 0.02 parts per trillion. So, just FYI, 48 parts per trillion is a heck of a lot more than 0.02 parts per trillion. The total PFAS level in freshwater fish is 278 times higher than what's been found in commercially sold fish. David Andrews, a senior scientist with the nonprofit Environmental Working Group, which led research, told the press he grew up catching and eating fish. I can no longer look at fish without thinking about contamination. The findings were particularly concerning during the impact of disadvantaged communities that consume fish as a source of protein or for social and cultural reasons. This research makes me incredibly angry because companies that made and use PFAS contaminate the globe and have not been held responsible. Patrick Byrne, an environmental pollution research for the UK's Liverpool's John Moore University, not involved in the research, said PFASs are probably the greatest chemical threat to the human race is facing in the 21st century. This study is important because it provides the first evidence of widespread transfer of PFASs directly from fish to humans. Ugh. Andrews called for a more stringent regulation to bring an end to all non-essential uses of PFASs. Study comes from after Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden submitted a proposal to ban PFASs to the European Union's European Chemical Agency on Friday. The proposal, one of the broadest in the EU's history, comes after the 5 countries found PFASs that weren't adequately controlled and block-wide regulation was needed. Yeah, because the way things go, people want to make profit. That's at the end of the day, they want to make a profit. So, and they don't care. They don't think it's that bad. They don't think it's that much of a risk. Now, my guess is going to be, we're talking, it's a big freaking country. Let's be honest. that this is an average of what you're seeing. But what it comes down to is two things. I'm going to find out more. I'm going to take some time on the research. But having thought through this, there are two things that come to mind. First of all, is that when you're talking about river specifically, it's got to be one of those things where further downriver gets worse. Now, if you've ever flown to like St. Louis or Memphis or New Orleans, you fly in and you will see what looks like the river from the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, brown, yellowish brown river going down this. And you're like, what the heck is that? It's like, that's the Mississippi. The amount of runoff that's hitting that water is pretty obnoxious. My guess is the fish that you catch on the banks of the Mississippi on the southern end of it glow at night. That would, you can use them to find your way home. That would be my guess. There were, and by the way, when I flew down there, there were people fishing on that river. I'm like, can you not see the unnatural color of this? And they're pulling fish out. Oh my God. That would be my guess, is that it depends on where on the river is you're going to have a higher amount. Not saying that you're not going to have some of these forever chemicals, even up, say, in Pike Park Rapids at the beginning of the Mississippi. I'm considering that idiot group of people that built the Line 3, I'd be surprised if there was tons of chemicals in that water now. Lakes are an interesting side note. I think it comes down to the lake. If you're on a lake that's not that busy, it's got to be a little bit less, especially if it's a lake that, even though it might be part of a feeder system, it's fairly at the beginning of the feeder system. I got to believe Superior and the Great Lakes have got to have tons of that stuff in there. Frankly, I'm going to be blunt, and I know this is not going to be something that people are going to want me to say, but I got to believe Lake Minnetonka is just full of it. I got to believe that. I mean, you have gilded mansions. We're going to make the yard look nice. It's going to be green, green, green. So you're going to get the lawn runoff. You're going to get, waste runoff. You're going to get road runoff. Probably, industrial runoff, corporate, commercial runoff in some capacity. Is there any oil change or gas stations around that lake? Well, there you go. My guess is you're going to get some of that. I'm not, I've said, would I pull a fish out of McCoska or Harriet or Cedar? No, God, no. Lake of the Owls? No. I Crunchy. No, I'm not about to do that. And I also will say this, I probably wouldn't fish anywhere in the downtown Minneapolis area, just because, okay, how many major highways and bridges go over that sucker? And if I'm not mistaken, most of that water just goes straight down into the river, doesn't it? Comes off the road. Yeah, you're pre-salting your fish in this time of year. We got a problem. Regardless of where you're at, regardless of what lake you're on or what river you're on, we have got to stop thinking of, sure, it's jeopardizing our lives. Sure, it's jeopardizing our health. Sure, it's jeopardizing our safety. Sure, it's jeopardizing the environment, but it saves us 3 cents per package on this item at the store. So give me my 3 cents. I don't think that that's really a good idea. And the reality is these people that made these forever chemicals, whether or not they knew that they were dangerous, the reality is they made sure that they were an absolute industrial necessity, so that if they ever did come back and find out it becomes a much more difficult position to shake the U.S.'s need and the world's need for this. I mean, my God, we all have these chemicals. Every single one of us have these chemicals in us. And that you're getting it from the food, you're getting it from the water, getting it from the air, probably. Ugh. But once again, if you eat one fish, this study shows you eat one fish from a lake or a river in the United States, that's like drinking a month's worth of contaminated water. Yikes. Yikes. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. But hey, we should trust the Republicans when they say the multi-million-dollar international conglomeration of corporations who have a long-standing history of polluting the crap out of everywhere they go, that when they pinky swear they're going to be safe this time, we should trust them. Yikes. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. We'll take a break. Come on back. It is the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Hey, it's Tom letting you know that affordable energy storage has arrived with a solar battery from All Energy Solar. A solar battery works by storing excess electricity generated by your solar panels. You can then use that energy later. That means you won't have to use fossil fuel energy during evenings, cloudy days, or even power outages. All Energy Solar offers both customized residential and commercial solar battery storage solutions that enable you to capture the free, abundant power of the sun. Installing residential or commercial solar batteries from All Energy Solar is easy. They'll take care of everything from system design and permitting to installation, financing, and customer service. And best of all, the Inflation Reduction Act included an extension and increase to the federal solar tax credit. That tax credit will also apply to your battery backup, saving you even more money. So store your solar energy and cut out the fossil fuel companies with All Energy Solar. Call 800-620-3370 or visit allenergysolar.com.
Seward Co-op is now offering convenient self-serve and prepackaged hot options and salad bars at both the Franklin and Friendship stores. Breakfast items available daily until 11 a.m. and brunch served all day every Sunday. Their weekly lunch and dinner menus highlight cuisines from around the world. They offer vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free options daily. 95% of the ingredients used are organic from small-scale, local community food producers whenever possible. More at seward.coop.
Do you have a car you no longer need but don't want to jump through all the hoops to sell yourself? Rudy Luther Toyota can help with their We Buy program. It's really simple. Go to rudyluthertoyota.com, click on the We Buy link, type in some basic information, and Rudy Luther will get you an instant and accurate offer. Then set an appointment, and after a quick verification of the vehicle, Rudy Luther will set up your payment with a check on the spot in most cases. We Buy. It's that simple. For more information or to sell your vehicle, head to rudyluthertoyota.com. That's rudyluthertoyota.com.
Progressive change doesn't just happen. It takes dedication and a lot of hard work. 25 years ago, the DataBank pioneered a new generation of software tools for progressive organizations here in Minnesota. Since then, thousands of organizations have used the DataBank to create progressive change. Today, the DataBank continues to help progressive organizations like AM 950. To have the DataBank help your organization build capacity and create more change, text CHANGE to 612-540-0500 or go to thedatabank.com. The DataBank, a quarter century of dedication and hard work for progressive organizations.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Angela Warner from Warner Stellian is going to join us. They've got a big thing with Make-A-Wish coming up here. We're going to talk to her coming up in a little bit. I want to talk about McDonald's, though. Holy God, Max Nestorak. Once again, can I just say how great it is we have the Minnesota Reformer in town? Dear God, thank God that they have the news coverage. And I go back to George Floyd and stuff. The stories that the Reformer was actually exposing, if not for the Reformer being there, we would have never found out about it. They were the ones that point people on the Stallings case, really. Anyway, back to Max Nestorak's latest. A company operating 14 McDonald's restaurants in Minnesota will adopt new sexual harassment policies and procedures under a settlement agreed by the Minnesota Department of Human Rights in state court on Wednesday. Prepare yourself. You're not going to be happy. The consent decree is a result of a lawsuit filed by the mother of a 14-year-old worker who was sexually assaulted and raped by a supervisor at the Maple Grove McDonald's in 2018. The State Department of Human Rights joined the lawsuit shortly after it filed in 2021, alleging that Hyder Investments, Hyder, Hyder Investments, which operates McDonald's restaurants across the Twin Cities, fostered a workplace culture that allowed the sexual abuse to go on for months of a 14-year-old. The consent decree means that these McDonald's restaurants are now safer for employees. Minnesota Department of Human Rights Commissioner Rebecca Lucero said in a statement, sexual harassment in the fast food industry has long been a reality, and this consent decree serves up much needed reform. Years ago, long time ago, I worked at some McDonald's when I was a kid and when I was a teenager. And yeah, I saw it. There was, this is back to, it was such a weird, different time. Because back then, I mean, everyone worked at McDonald's. It was, today there's a lot of jobs, especially if you get into the suburbs, where a lot of the kids in the suburbs won't work those jobs. And part of it is, too, there are people that came into those jobs who are saying, you don't have to pay a part-time person. I'll work for you full-time. Just give me the job. And so the dynamics changed dramatically. But when I was there, I was working on a shift with some of the more popular kids in some of the schools. And, some attractive girls when I was a kid, like, hi, my name is, I'll just go back to the fryer, that sort of thing. I remember there were managers, creeper managers that were, hey there, let me show you how the cash register works. I remember that. But you didn't, I never saw anything that came to this level. A representative for Hyder Investments was not available for comment. The company has denied all allegations and misconduct in legal filings. Soon after the 14-year-old girl began working at McDonald's in 2018, supervisor Andrew Albertorio began directing her to work in places where she would be alone. She was found, once again, I want to make sure we understand this, 14. He would then follow her and assault her, according to the complaint filed by the girl's mother. In December 2018, he followed her into the cooler and then he raped her there. After he sexually assaulted her, they walked out of the cooler and continued to work. To illustrate the absurdity of the situation, the minor then had to ask him for permission to go to the bathroom after he stole, basically, he raped her in the cooler. The complaint reads, Albertorio, who was 24 when he worked as a shift manager at the fast food restaurant, was sentenced to 10 years in prison after pleading guilty to criminal sexual misconduct in January of 2020. Under federal labor laws, teenagers as young as 14 may get jobs in restaurants and other non-agricultural and non-hazardous workplaces, but they are limited to what kind of tasks they can perform and how much can they work. By the way, side note, hey, the company that cleans those slaughterhouses, you hear that? Apparently you ignored it. The complaints from Grotberg and the Minnesota Department of Human Rights said that other managers at the Maple Grove McDonald's were aware of his inappropriate behavior, but not report the abuse. The company's employee handbook only provided vague information on handling sexual harassment and listed a phone number to report abuse. Here was the phone number that they had in their official documents about reporting abuse. XXX, XXX, XXXX, with all X's instead of numbers. Wow. Grothberg and her daughter reached a separate agreements with Hyder Investments and the CEO, Shahab Hyder. The details of the settlement between Hyder Investments and the victim and the mother had not made public. Under the negotiated consent decree with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, which must be approved by the judge, Hyder must meet with non-supervisory employees to hear their feedback and concerns and then develop a report that outlines steps to address these concerns. Hyder Investments must also create new policies to prevent and address sexual harassment and abuse, which will be assessed by the Minnesota Department of Human Resources. Employees will also be able to receive regular training on how to intervene in misconduct and report it. Hyder Investments will also pay $11,250 under the negotiated consent decree. This, by the way, this complaint for the Minnesota franchisee is not unique. Female workers at McDonald's across the country report rampant sexual harassment and abuse. A 2020 survey of 800 female McDonald's workers found 3/4 said they were harassed, and nearly as many said they suffered consequences for reporting the misconduct. McDonald's, by the way, disputes the findings in the survey, which was commissioned by the unions. Across the service industry more broadly, women and girls working in low-wage jobs have the highest reported incidences of sexual harassment and assault. Earlier this month, a McDonald's franchisee agreed to pay nearly $2 million and adopt new policies and procedures to settle a sexual harassment lawsuit filed by the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. According to that lawsuit, supervisors and managers allowed sexual harassment and assault of a young teenage employee to continue at McDonald's restaurants in California, Nevada, and in Arizona. Wow. I had no idea this was this rampant and this was this bad. In October of 2021, hundreds of McDonald's employees walked out of restaurants in various cities to protest what they said was repeated sexual harassment. Two women in Florida filed a class action suit against McDonald's alleging hostile work environment. Wow. How is it in this day and age that your employee handbook, the phone number to report abuse, is XXXXXXXXXXX? How is that even possible? I almost kind of wonder, did no one inspect this restaurant? Because wouldn't that be something that would stand out like a sore thumb? Well, that's a big gig. You got to fix that. Wow. No idea. Had no idea it was this bad. And my God, how horrible. I will say this. I have 3 kids. I got 2 daughters. There are certain jobs I really have steered my kids away from trying to get. And frankly, kind of working in fast food is one of them. I've kind of steered them away. I said, I don't know if you want to do this. They've worked for a local ice cream hut, but that's a little bit, it's not kind of in a more, kind of a more corporate environment. How about I say it like that? But and also there's a lot of people there, but my God, nothing. I never heard of anything like this. Once again, thank you very much to the Minnesota Reformer, because I didn't see this story anywhere else. Da 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 da. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Hi, this is Laura, and I want to tell you about my family's favorite thing. It's our wood stove. We bought it about 14 years ago from Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. And see, the wood stove has actually paid for itself because we can keep the main area that we live in toasty warm with this great moist heat. But more important than saving money, it has actually improved our lives. Having a fire simplifies life. It provides comfort. It sort of takes the chill out of winter.
I'm Peter Solak. In 1977, I started Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, and I experienced the simple joy of warming myself by a fire. I also realized that the place and the way we embrace fire has evolved in a diversity of forms and styles. So at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, we have brought together the widest selection of our fireplace products and technical knowledge in the Twin Cities. Our mission is to use our knowledge to help you choose the design and function that is right for you and your home.
Visit Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces today and find the right fire for you.
Next time on Philosophy Talk, the merits of meritocracy.
America was built on the promise that effort and ability will always be rewarded.
Right. Like America isn't a rigged system that rewards people for belonging to the right group.
Are you saying that the people at the top don't deserve their success?
Are you saying the people at the bottom don't deserve something better?
The merits of meritocracy. Next time on Philosophy Talk.
Philosophy Talk, every Sunday at 8 a.m. on AM 950.
The new year is here, and it's time to take advantage of Zero Res's best deal of the year. Carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be Zero Resified, so it's time to call the cleaning pros at Zero Res. And don't forget your air ducts to help alleviate allergies and asthma. And it's also important to enjoy less dust, lower energy bills, and your home staying cleaner longer. Zero Res is here to protect your biggest investment, your home. Why pay someone to clean your carpet if they are going to leave something behind that makes it dirty again super fast? Zero Res is the longest lasting and best clean. Schedule your appointment at zeroresminnesota.com or call 952-0RES, and don't forget to ask for the AM 950 special. This month, book and clean in January only and get 23% off all services for 2023. That's 952-0RES or zeroresminnesota.com. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 30. Tonight, about 2 to 4 inches of snow with a low of 26. And Thursday, another 1 to 2 inches of snow with a high around 30. The Great Wall Restaurant has provided a delicious taste of authentic Chinese cuisine since 1981. Specializing in Szechuan and Peking dishes, the Great Wall Restaurant offers one of the most extensive Chinese menus in the Twin Cities. Located just north of 50th and France on the Edina-Minneapolis border, order now at greatwalledina.com.
I saw this. Holy God. So the GOP is suggesting we get rid of the IRS and replace it with a 30-cent, outside of the deepest trenches of conservatism, a 30% sales tax is seen like a political loser. A 30% sales tax. That's what they want to do. They want to get rid of the Internal Revenue Service and then impose a national 30% sales tax, which basically means for every dollar you spend, 30 cents of that is tax. Wow. Yeah, that won't cripple the middle and lower class. Unbelievable. 952-946. I'll see if I can find more on here. Brett, did you hear about that? Am I alone on this?
No, I have not heard either.
Apparently this is the big idea, Republicans, a 30% sales tax. Wow.
Oof, no one will notice that.
No, geez. And once again, let me make sure we understand something. The sales tax is a regressive tax. It's a tax that affects the middle and lower class far more than the billionaires. Elon Musk would not have a problem with that, although he probably gets some tax write-off, so he wouldn't have to pay that. But you and I, who are watching our budgets, now imagine 30% of it is gone because we need to make sure millionaires and billionaires get more and more tax breaks. Dear Lord. Okay, I'm going to look at this a little bit more here. But right now, one of the things I always love is I love some of the advertisers that we work with. They're really big-hearted people, and they go out and help out in charity. And Brett, you got a chance to talk with Angela Warner over at Warner Stellian. They are doing some things. They're partnering with Make-A-Wish, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. They are partnering with Make-A-Wish to give back to the community, where basically what's happening is that for each appliance, $799 and up, they are going to make a $50 donation to Make-A-Wish. They've been doing this for a while right now. In fact, Angela, who I'm going to be speaking with, talked about the story about how she was able to help a 5-year-old girl named Olivia from Osseo visit the San Diego Zoo, which was a dream of hers. So yeah, we'll be chatting with her and a little bit about the history of Warner Stellian, because that is the definition of a family-owned company. So we'll get into that a little bit more, talking about how many members of her extended family work for Warner Stellian. So that's what's coming up.
And a company that's doing it right. And absolutely there. Angela Warner joins Brett right now, right here on AM 950.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Brett Johnson with you. Well, right now we're joined by Angela Warner of Warner Stellian, Minnesota's appliance specialist, as we're not only going to be talking about, obviously, the great work they do with your appliance needs at home, but also how they are very involved in the community, as they have a number of programs that are really giving back. And looking forward to chatting with Angela about that here on today's interview. Angela, thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brad. Anytime I get to talk about appliances, I'm jazzed. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We're going to be diving into that, including how you have the nickname, the Dishwasher Whisperer, which I'll be curious to talk with you about a little bit later on. But before we get into all of that stuff and the great program you guys have with Make-A-Wish, I do want to dive into the history of Warner Stellian, because you guys are very much a family-owned company. You're not some big corporation owned by a hedge fund in New York or anything like that. It's a locally owned family company. So I'm curious to hear about the history of Warner Stellian, because it is very, very fascinating. So go ahead, tell us about that.
Yeah. So in 1954, my grandpa started working for Stellian Appliance as a bookkeeper. That's how he was hired on. But eventually, as the store was busy and maybe they needed help, he would find himself up on the sales floor talking to customers, knowing really nothing about appliances. I mean, he did later, come to, he had 9 children, so he definitely owned appliances, but he wasn't really someone who had formal training on using them or use them on a daily basis. But his ability to just connect with people, listen, and be very trustworthy immediately, just a really warm and caring type of person. Very funny, very, very funny. He was able to connect with people in a way that they wanted to buy from him. So in not too short time, he became a salesperson and then a sales manager. And at some point in the late 60s, early 70s, he was approached by the owner and asked if there was interest in purchasing Stellian appliance. And he, had to really work hard to figure out how to financially make that happen, but was able to do so, and then later named it Warner's Stellian. Keeping the name Stellian was important because there were a lot of mom and pop appliance shops back then. Not like today, but he needed to keep that name recognition from the company that people knew and trusted in that local Roseville, kind of Falcon Heights neighborhood where we started. So it became Warner Stellian, and later all 9 of his children joined the family business and worked there either in full-time or part-time capacity. We now have 12 stores. We're in 2 states. And the 9 kids that my grandma and grandpa had 37 kids. I'm the second oldest of those 37 and have worked full-time for the family business for 24 years now. And I join 21 of my cousins in full-time work status. And a lot of people have asked me, Brett, over the years, Angela, does it like a requirement that you work there, or how are there so many of you that have decided to work there? And it is truly just, I think that for me, and I would say a lot of my cousins and siblings, the passion that is displayed from the family for this business and for the community and for serving is what brings us here, and how so many of us have chosen to make this our career. And it's so fun, Brett. So I'm just really blessed and honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, did I hear you correctly? 21 cousins working for the company. Yeah, obviously, something's got to be getting done right if all 21 of you are working there, obviously.
Yeah, out of 37, it's definitely a lot. So in my family of 5, 4 of us are full-time in my mom and dad's family. So quite a bit. Yep.
Well, you and I had a chance to chat a little bit off air about your grandfather and the ways that he has given back to the community. They were values that were really installed, I think, in you, as you talked about. So I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about how your grandfather helped out in the community and how he instilled those values in you today in terms of trying to continue giving back to the community with a great Make-A-Wish program. So let's start with your grandfather and some of the ways that he decided to help give back to the community over the years.
Sure. I think the first thing I, could say is that I started working there when I was really young, and watching him kind of, there was never like, he couldn't do enough for his customers. That was something I saw firsthand. If it was something that he could do reasonably, he would do it. And so I think that's kind of the mentality and the culture of the business that we're trying to see carried through. And another thing, as I was researching, onboarding and trying to help all the people that I was going to be training in the sales department and in the company learn about who he was. And a message that kept coming was how philanthropic he was. So many things he had given to, so many different things he was a part of. And it wasn't something that he talked about, openly. He wasn't, he was just really humble. This was something he did because he wanted to do it and he believed it was the right thing. And so seeing how that's really been passed down to his children and now to myself and my cousins, that this is just part of what we do, and we need to continue that as this company moves forward into the future. And so there's so many organizations, honestly, Brett, that we have given to or participated in raising money with or different things. But one of them that I'm super proud of and really just excited to talk about today is our partnership with Make-A-Wish. And that's something that's been going on for a while here, but recently, a year ago, we started a new promotion where we decided, instead of just giving people great sale prices and great service and all that we always do, instead of a rebate back to that customer, why don't we see if people in the community are excited like we are to give to that cause? So right now, if you purchase an appliance for $7.99 or more, in partnership with Warner Stellian, we're donating $50 for each appliance that qualifies to Make-A-Wish. And last year, I was able to present a $100,000 check to Make-A-Wish of Minnesota and $10,000 Make-A-Wish Iowa. And it was so exciting and just such a cool thing to be a part of. So I couldn't be more pleased that we're doing it again and that the response from the community is so positive and so excited, just like we are.
And you, of course, have some personal stories about how your partnership with Make-A-Wish has been able to, well, help a number of people, including a really touching story you have about a 5-year-old child who wanted to go visit San Diego. Tell us about that.
Yeah, last summer, I was asked if I wanted to help grant a wish. Warner Stellian was granting a wish, and what I presented to this little girl, and it was like, are you kidding? This is my job. I get to go do this thing. So much fun to be a part of it. The Minnesota Zoo also was a part of it. So they came and brought all these little animals, creepy crawlies and turtles, and just things that were small enough so that she could be excited, not understanding what was coming. It was just, hey, the zoo's here. We know you love animals. Let's, talk about your love of animals. And she was really smart and just full of life and excited. And then so they did that whole zoo thing, and then it was our turn, and I got to tell her that she was getting to go to San Diego Zoo, which was her dream. And that little girl had lived through cancer during COVID when she could only see one of her parents for quite a while, and it was really touching to be a part of like seeing the excitement in her face when she learned she was going to go see those animals at the San Diego Zoo. So I'll never forget it. Her name was Olivia. She's from Osseo. Just such a sweet little story, and to be a part of that, and then to understand that the community helped us be able to do that is so cool. So I'll look forward to another one of those hopefully coming up here.
Yeah, hopefully several more of those. That's a very cool story about how she was
Right,
able
as
to go.
many as we can.
Absolutely. And I think what's cool as well is that it sounds like a number of the brands that you guys work with are participating in this program as well. And I'm sure customers are also very excited to know that part of the proceeds or part of the purchase price that they make is going towards Make-A-Wish. So talk about that aspect a little bit. That's got to be good too, to have many of these brands on board as well.
Yeah, so when we do a promotion like this, obviously we're participating, but we're also asking our vendor partners, some of the brands we work with, and so many of them have chosen to step up and have said, yes, Warner Stellian, if this is what you want to put these promotional dollars towards, we're in on that with you. And so not every brand qualifies, but many of the brands, and we have a lot of brands at Warner Stellian to choose from, many of them have decided to partner with us on this. And then, yeah, we are definitely talking to customers about it and saying, hey, during this promotion, this is extra special because yes, things are on sale and you're going to get a great price. But also, wouldn't it be cool to be a part of granting a wish to a child who's lived with a life-threatening illness? And people they really are excited about it. And, that's one way that we can, kind of explain that buying from Warner Stellian is different because your money is staying in the local community. Part of it is, as much as we can, is going to support the communities that have supported us and have made us the success that we are today. So.
Absolutely. And when it comes to buying an appliance, whether it's a dishwasher or something like that, oh, sometimes it's not always the funnest thing for people to do, especially if they've had a dishwasher that's gone out. So I think that's kind of cool to know that, well, they have to make this necessary purchase, but part of it is going back into the community and going towards a company like Warner Stallion, which is about giving back. So I think that's a good aspect to add as well.
Yeah, it is. It is. You're right. It's not always we're doing a really exciting remodel. A lot of times it's my washer died last night
Right.
and I have 5 loads of laundry that I have to do now. So yeah.
Well, we have been speaking with Angela Warner of Warner Stellian about not only the great work they do giving back to the community, but also importantly, of course, the Make-A-Wish program as well. Where again, just to reiterate, each appliance you get or your purchase of $799 and up will earn a $50 Make-A-Wish donation. You can learn more about that, warnerstellian.com, warnerstellian.com. Make sure you participate in a very cool program. Angela, really appreciate you coming on the show today, telling us about the Make-A-Wish program, also the history of Warner Stallion, and some of the services you guys provide. Really appreciate it today.
Thank you so much, Brett, for having us on. We really appreciate it. And can't wait till the next time we can.
All right, let's take a break and send things back over to Matt McNeil on AM 950.
Hi, I'm Mary T. of the Mary T. family of companies. Our new Camellia Rose Assisted Living and Memory Care is a bold reimagining of what assisted living can be. Our emphasis is on creative meals, outdoor walking paths, and a spectrum of restorative therapies and activities. We are founded on a history of care. We are dedicated to enriching lives. Learn more about Camellia Rose Assisted Living and Memory Care by visiting marytinc.com.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
Don't drive too fast or you will miss Scott Jamama's Hot Barbecue. Scott Jamama's offers huge taste out of a little place. Located at 3 West Diamond Lake Road near the intersection of Nicollet Avenue and West Diamond Lake Road in Minneapolis, this tiny hole in the wall offers mouth-watering baby back ribs, grilled chicken, and half-pound pulled pork sandwiches. Don't forget to add the potato salad, spicy baked beans, twice baked potatoes, and delicious desserts. Find their winter hours and full menu at scottjamamas.com.
Progressive change doesn't just happen. It takes dedication and a lot of hard work. 25 years ago, the Data Bank pioneered a new generation of software tools for progressive organizations here in Minnesota. Since then, thousands of organizations have used the Data Bank to create progressive change. Today, the Data Bank continues to help progressive organizations like AM 950. To have the Data Bank help your organization build capacity and create more change, text CHANGE to 612-540-0500 or go to thedatabank.com. The Data Bank, a quarter century of dedication and hard work for progressive organizations.
Very nice. And by the way, also, you can go help out, go to Warner Stallion, buy up an appliance, help out, Make-A-Wish. And a reminder that they're sponsors here of AM 950, and so they're bringing you progressive radio here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So make sure you head on over them and visit all our sponsors, but they're doing such great work over there with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So go and help them out. Please do. Nicely done, Brett. Brett, I did do some research during the interview here. I got here. Okay, so here's the deal. Okay, on the 30% sales tax, which, by the way, I want to make sure the reason why this all of a sudden popped up was because one of the Democrats posted that the Republicans are presenting this 30% sales tax. I said, you got to be kidding. This story actually broke a week ago. I think the Republicans are doing everything in their power to basically try to keep it out of the news. So this is from Snoops.com. A newly sworn in U.S. House Republican majority in 2023 will vote on a bill that would abolish the IRS. That is true. The opportunity to vote on such a bill is part of a deal made between U.S. Representative Kevin McCarthy and 20 Republicans who had initially refused to give him their vote for Speaker of the House. But even if they said if said bill were passed in the House, it would not be expected to pass the Senate. Sure wouldn't pass the Joe Biden as president. Republican legislatures who assumed a small majority in the U.S. House in 2020 are expected to vote in 2023 on a piece of legislation that would, if passed by both houses, abolish the IRS, but the bill has little chance of passing. The bill, called the Fair Tax Act, was introduced by Representative Buddy Carter from Georgia on January 10th, would abolish the agency, and Carter said in the news release, and the legislation will replace it with a national consumption tax known as the Fair Tax. Now, I thought I'd heard about that, but not much details. But apparently they had the details. They just didn't want anyone to know about them. Instead of adding 87,000 new agents to weaponize the IRS against small business owners in middle America, this bill will eliminate the need for the department entirely by simplifying the tax code with provisions that would work for the American people and encourage growth and innovation. Carter said in a statement about the bill, armed, unelected bureaucrats should not have more power over your paycheck than you do. Armed? The IRS agents are armed? Okay. A vote on the bill was part of a deal made between the newly elected House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, 20 Republicans. Though the IRS is probably not the most popular government agency, not everyone links eliminating in favor of consumption tax would be a boon to taxpayers that Carter claims. On January 11th post by Just Taxes, a blog run by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, which describes itself as a nonpartisan think tank, Steve Wamhoff, the organization's federal policy director, described the proposal as neither original or beneficial. The bill would impose a 30% sales tax on everything we buy: groceries, cars, homes, home health care, school tuition, and lead to a giant tax shift from the well-off to the middle and lower class. So basically, the sales tax is a regressive tax. It affects the middle and lower class far more than it does there. If you only are making, say, $30,000, if you have a 30% federal sales tax, that's a fairly large portion of your salary that's just been taken away. Versus if you're making $20 million a year, you probably won't feel that. And once again, if I may reiterate, I guarantee the Republicans will make loopholes to prevent the wealthy from they'll get reimbursed for their 30% federal sales tax. By the way, Wamhoff originally traced the idea's origin put forward by the Church of Scientology in a dispute over whether the organization be considered a church and thus tax exempt. Wow. So 30-cent tax. This is what the Republicans have come up with. This is their grand idea. A 30-cent tax on every dollar. And once again, if it's a regressive tax is a tax applied in the way that the tax decreases with the increase in the taxpayer's income. So it's dramatically going to affect the buying power of the middle and lower class far more than it will affect the upper class. Sin tax is another one of those that's a regressive tax. Yeah. So the Republicans think that this is going to be a good idea. Don't get me wrong. I guarantee you there are some MAGA idiots out there going, I'd love to be taxed at 30%, which by the way, you wouldn't. That 30%, but how are you going to sell this in states that don't have a state sales tax? Because I guarantee you that's not going to fly. But if you're a state like Minnesota, which was 6.75 or something like that. So every dollar you spend, 36.75 cents will go to taxes. Wow. That's a really bad idea, but it's what the Republicans have got. Native Roots Radio is coming up in the 6 o'clock hour. Make sure you're sticking around for that. Have a good one. We are back on a Thursday. I'll see if I can get Jack for that. Until then, see ya.
The new year is here, and it's time to take advantage of Zero Res's best deal of the year. Carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery.